Thanks for joining us for part 2 of our procedure. In the first half of our program, we spoke with Mercy plastic surgeon, Dr. Craig Vander Kolk, and now we're joined by his colleague, Dr. Brendan Collins of Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery at Mercy. Dr. Collins, thanks for joining us today. First, a little background. You're originally from Bernardsville, New Jersey. And I understand there's a lot of farms, rivers, mountains, parks, outdoor activities. What was it like growing up there?
It was a real pretty area. It's kind of rolling hills, a lot of outdoor space, a lot of horse, kind of like New Jersey's horse area. Not that we were into horses, but lots of rivers, streams. Plenty of good outdoor environment for growing up, and it was just a great place to be.
So, like in Green Acres, you had to say, you left Green Acres in reverse. You left there, and now you're in the city life world
Yes.
here. So, what's that like? Is that better, worse for you? What do you think?
Well, I really enjoyed Baltimore City. When I was a resident, I lived in Federal Hill for about 10 years, and when I finished, we had 3 children, and we decided that we really liked the city, and we decided to stay. So we now live in Guilford, and I love the old homes and the old architecture, and it's a great thing about Baltimore is being very close to downtown, plenty to do, and it also gives me a nice, easy commute to Mercy, which I enjoy.
Now, why medicine? Is that something that you had always had an interest in?
I don't know. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and I was kind of always amazed by every time a new sibling entered our house of just how important the obstetrician was to making all that happen. So I think that was maybe like the first initial interest in medicine. And then growing up, one of my parents' closest friends, they lived in Vermont, and we had a ski house up in Vermont. And so we would meet up with them almost every weekend. And he was a general surgeon in Bennington, Vermont. And, I just kind of like really latched on to what his life was like. And my father worked in finance in Manhattan, and I knew that I didn't want to do that because I saw the grueling commute that he had every day and the long hours. And I still work the long hours, but at least I've got a nice commute. So anyways, when I was in college, I spent a month living with this general surgeon and, shadowed him from dawn to whenever the end of the day was. And it was a pretty amazing experience. I was in the operating room every day observing, and I really just kind of got to see what it was like to live that life. And it was something that I decided that I was suited for. And that was kind of, I guess, where it all started.
Now, how did you wind up in plastic surgery as your specialty? Was that something you thought you were going to go into?
Yeah, so when I started at Johns Hopkins, I was in the general surgery track. And I really, didn't know, when I was in med school, I just didn't have great exposure in plastic surgery. And in the first 2 years of my residency at Hopkins in general surgery, we would spend 1 month a year on the plastic surgery service. And I really enjoyed the breadth of the field, just the incredible variety, the finesse, and it really kind of had everything that I was looking for. It had a bit of, vascular surgery, a bit of orthopedic surgery, a bit of neurosurgery, and I just kind of knew that was what I was suited for. I also had tremendous mentors who kind of took me under their wing. And I ended up finishing general surgery and then went into additional years in plastic surgery at Hopkins. And I'm very grateful to all of my mentors, both in general surgery and in plastic surgery. I always tell my kids, find a mentor because it's so critical to becoming the best at what you can do. So.
When we talked to Dr. Vander Kolk earlier, he had mentioned that he had spent time in Australia. You spent time in Dublin, Ireland. Is that correct? Were you into Beaumont Hospital? It's a large teaching hospital.
Yes.
Why go there?
Well, so as part of the general surgery program at Hopkins, one of the great features was that every year there were 2 residents who would go to Beaumont 6 months each, and the other 2, there were 4 of us each year. The other 2 would go to Oxford in England, and with my Irish background, I fought hard to get that spot at Beaumont, and it was really just an amazing 6 months where I, was basically kind of a senior resident on the general surgery service there. And we had our own apartment, and the Department of Surgery had a car for us. And so every weekend that we had some time off, we would jump in the car with our kids and just go explore the Irish countryside. And it was really just an amazing experience, not only for me in terms of just developing my surgical skills, but also for our family to have an experience, outside the U.S. And it's to this day some of our fondest memories of residency was the experience in Dublin.
Do you have any relatives in Ireland?
None currently. Most of my relatives all came over during the potato famine. So my uncle did a lot of research and all of that, and it seemed like most of my relatives were in County Cork and County Mayo. But I'm sure there are some very, very distant relatives there now, but none that I know of. So.
Mm-hmm. That's actually my own family history. You go back to County Cork.
Mm-hmm.
And I should say, for the viewers, that to my knowledge, there's no relation since we're both Collins
exactly,
here.
Yes.
But then again, there's a lot of Collinses out there, so who
Precisely.
knows?
Yeah.
So at this point in your career, what do you see as the next challenge?
That's a good question. I really see myself as a clinician. I really enjoy working with patients. I enjoy the challenges of surgery. A lot of what we do involves long hours and incredible, stamina. And my goal is to keep staying in shape so that I can keep putting in those hours and keep operating. I would imagine, perhaps I would transition into something administrative in the future, but for now, I think, I'm still very focused on being as busy clinically as I can be.
We'll take a break and return after this message.
We see a lot of things on television where patients have had cosmetic surgery or cosmetic procedures and they don't look natural. Good cosmetic surgery should look natural. You shouldn't know it's been done. It should make you feel better, refreshed, rejuvenated, but not artificial. The important part about talking to patients about what they want and what they're looking for is to have a consultation. I want to listen to what they are thinking, what areas of concern they have, what are you a candidate for, what will work for you, how to make it look natural and affordable. That's why I like to get a relationship with the patient so that I talk to them, feel where they are. For me, the most exciting thing is to find a patient who has a concern and then being able to address it and then see them several weeks later after they've had the injectable or the procedure and just see how they feel, because it really can be an eye-opening experience for them, makes them feel better about themselves, and I see that smile on their face when they're all done. And that's probably the most exciting thing, is blending new ideas and new treatments into an individual patient so that they can get the best outcome. When a patient walks in my door, I want them to think of excellence and experience. Excellence that they'll get the best treatment they can, and experience to know what is going to be best in the long term and be natural for them when they walk out the door.
As frequent viewers know, one regular feature of our show is a bit of show and tell, where our guest brings in an item of some personal interest. It's important to them in some way, says something about who they are and what they're about. Dr. Collins, what do you have for us?
Well, it's something that I wear every day. A lot of times patients will see me wearing this in the office and they'll say, "What is that? Was that a watch?" It's actually it's called a Whoop. I've been wearing it for about 5 years, and it's basically like a fancy heart rate monitor, but it can track my stress. It'll track my sleep. It tracks my deep sleep, REM sleep. It really gives me a tremendous amount of information just to know how I'm doing. It's just one of those things that I learned a lot about myself in terms of figuring out, at the end of a very long day, if I get home, what can I do to kind of calm down so that I can get a better sleep when I'm running on short hours, et cetera. So for me, I've really learned a ton about myself and figured out how to kind of optimize myself and be ready for the next day. So I think it's definitely something that I just value tremendously. The data is incredible, and it's I don't know. It's just kind of changed the way I think about doing things, I guess. You can only modify what you measure is kind of their mantra, and it's very true.
Well, that kind of segues into our next question, which is the challenge of trying to find that work-life balance and keeping stress at bay, as you mentioned. How do you think you're doing with that?
I think pretty good. I find that exercise is key, just staying in shape physically. When you have time off away from work, you want to be enjoying it. And I definitely love getting outside and being active. And my kids are a little bit older now, but there were times when you had to be on, when you're not working, because you got to, be up and doing things with kids and showing them that you're full of energy. And I think it's just key, staying in shape and being active, I think is just critical. So.
I imagine, given that some of the patients that you're dealing with who may be coming in for breast reconstruction, having gone through cancer surgery, they've got a lot of stress. And so in dealing with them and the issues that they're dealing with, there's this sort of wall of stress that you've got to face in terms of that. And so anything that you can do to maybe mitigate that, because that's beneficial to you, but it's also beneficial to the patient because you're going to be in a better place for them. Wouldn't you say so?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just having a calm demeanor, no matter what's going on, is very critical. And patients just have tremendous stress, not only just with their disease, but what other things might be going on in their lives. And, I think that patients tend to open up more when they sense that I'm calm and that I have time to listen, not in a rush, and just making them feel at ease. And it just allows me to do my job better because I know what other stresses they're dealing with.
We talk a lot about here at Mercy the concept of patient-centered care, which that kind of segues into and sort of the whole Mercy philosophy. So why Mercy? You came to Mercy in 2008. What's kept you here?
Well, it's definitely just the institution and the people who make it a great place to work. When I was looking for the next place to be coming out of residency, I really wanted to be doing a lot of microsurgery. And Mercy just was one of those few places that had really kind of built a good plastics program around that core technique. And, the great thing about Mercy is that the nurses, the staff, the OR, crew, everybody knows how we like to do things. And it's very critical because it just makes the experience much calmer for patients. There's the nurses on the floor. Everybody knows how we'd like to take care of our patients. And it's just a great experience for patients and their families. So that's why I'm still here.
Dr. Collins, I'd like to thank you for your time and your candor, and hopefully the viewers enjoyed some of the things that you had to say, maybe learned a thing or two. Thank you for watching. On behalf of myself, our guests, the Mercy staff, and the Sisters of Mercy, we wish you good health and humor. Until we gather again, may the road rise up to meet you. So you made it through the credits for Wait, Doctor, I Forgot to Ask. This is where we briefly discuss the question each physician wishes their patients would ask but don't, or the most unusual hand on the doorknob question posed by a patient at the end of their visit. Dr. Collins, what do you got?
I think the question that I think patients should ask is, why should I come to Mercy? I don't always get that. Baltimore, I think, has some of the best health care in the world, and we're surrounded by two amazing, large academic institutions. But patients know, word of mouth, previous family members, et cetera, that they know that Mercy is outstanding top to bottom. And we don't get asked that question, why should I come to Mercy, because they already know. I probably already answered it in the my previous answer about just Mercy being outstanding from all aspects, not just the physicians, but the tremendous, team that it takes to take care of people. And I think that's a question that I don't get asked that often, but you would think I would.
Well, our former president and CEO, Tom Mullen, used to always say that the thing about Mercy is that we have that academic institution level of care, but in a community hospital setting. So we have sort of the best of both worlds. Would you agree with that?
And that's what I think really attracted me to Mercy myself, was just it really is. It's a incredible group in a kind of pseudo-academic setting. But we are much more, I tell patients, we're much more nimble than I think the larger institutions, not only in terms of just getting patients scheduled, getting them what they need, but just making their whole journey through their ordeal, just making it much more manageable and more comfortable for them. And that's, I think, just something that's incredibly fantastic about Mercy, and it also makes it easier for me as a physician, because I can get things done quickly. I can do it. I have tremendous support for what I need to do. It makes my life a lot easier as well.
Thank you, Doctor.
Sure.